Hi, everybody. I'm Shimon Shkuri, president of Ariel Property Advisors. And today we're going to talk about the forgotten borough, Staten Island. A lot of things are happening there. John Higgins, my colleague, and Sean Kelly, my other colleague, both focus in Brooklyn and some areas of Staten Island specifically. They also live there, which is pretty amazing. Grew up there, and I can't be more authentic than that. So I want to start with you, John, just as a conversation piece. Tell us a little bit more about what is the one or two things that you really see happening from an investment sales perspective or real estate perspective in Staten Island today.
Yes, of course. Well, first, Shimon, thanks for having me. This is great. Always happy to talk about Staten Island. Like you said, it's my backyard. So the real one big thing that's been taking place in Staten Island has been the industrial development boom. You know, with the rise of e-commerce and the continued demand for warehouse space, Staten Island has really seen a benefit. You know, having the most undeveloped industrial land in New York City, you know, Staten Island has been a place where these developers are looking. And, you know, you could start back a few years ago when Matrix Global acquired a large parcel off the West Shore Expressway, which is now home to Amazon, where they take 2 million square feet. And now fast forward to this past year, 3 major developers have taken over 200 acres of land that accounted for over 50% of all the dollars spent on the island. And the island lends itself to that in the logistics phase, in that you have access to over 13 million consumers within an hour, right? You can, you know, access to New Jersey, all 5 boroughs.
That's
so
right.
So it's really seen a boon, and it's really been a big driver for Staten Island. The Amazon. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Amazon.
I was gonna say the Amazon facility is now one of the largest employers on the island, and also a home there is IKEA's distribution center. So it's been really great. It's been dubbed the Jobs Coast by the borough president of Staten Island, James Otto.
That's great. I mean, you know, when we spoke before, you and Sean told me that it's the borough of Staten Island has this M1 zone that was not rezoned as opposed to other boroughs, right? And that's really interesting, because in many boroughs, including the Bronx, including Upper Manhattan, including in Brooklyn, there are so many rezonings that took out the possibility of industrial. So essentially, Staten Island is really benefiting from that, from the fact that they're the only game in town or one of the only games in town when it comes to finding industrial space for last mile or for any other need for that. Make sense?
Yes, definitely. It has really you know, been a bright spot for developers to come and look, and you know, like I was saying, you know, over 200 acres, you know, were purchased, all with last mile logistics distribution centers in mind. So
great. And Sean, you've been prolific in Brooklyn, but you also live in Staten Island. You know it like the back of your hand. And I know both of you, John and you, are friends from childhood, which is awesome. But you've been looking at retail there a lot, and you had some ideas about what's happening in Staten Island in general, right?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, Staten Island has a, you know, very, very strong demographic, very high median income. In fact, the 10314 zip code is the most densely populated zip code in the 5 boroughs of national retailers. And while we're seeing, you know, retail struggle worldwide, basically, and a shift away from brick and mortar, a few years ago, General Growth Properties invested a few $100 million in the redevelopment of the Staten Island Mall, adding more than 500,000 square feet. And one of the larger transactions outside of the industrial world last year was the acquisition of a Dick's anchored shopping center immediately adjacent to the mall. What's been, you know, a little bit troubling is obviously the impact that COVID has had on our brick and mortar retail. You know, Staten Island's a very local market. A lot of people shop at their local stores, go to their regular restaurants. So retailers in that sense have really struggled. But overall, the retail market, historically has remained strong, even while a lot of other brick and mortar markets have struggled mightily.
So I know that in Manhattan, many people left the city in the heydays of the COVID pandemic. Did that happen in Staten Island as well, or were people staying put because they live mostly in houses? Is that right?
So yeah, I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, we've seen some Staten Islanders move to Jersey, but we've actually seen home prices probably rise 20% and demand be really strong. Where historically Staten Island, the Staten Island market was, if somebody was buying a single family or a two-family home, they went the normal route and they had a mortgage contingency. We're now seeing all cash buyers come into the market. It's the most affordable borough outside of the Bronx, and it's made up mostly of low-rise, single, 2, 3 family homes. So there's not a lot of high-density areas outside of the North Shore waterfront.
Yeah, and people wanted space, right, throughout the pandemic. Right? If in apartments, and Staten Island saw an uptick from that of people looking to come out here and have that land and have a backyard.
That's great. So industrial is doing well, retail is recovering. The residential market is doing better than the other boroughs just because it's more central and you have more space. What else before we wrap up?
Sure. If you're talking about Staten Island and you didn't talk about St. George, that would be a problem, right? The 20-minute boat ride to Manhattan, and it's really seen a great amount of development and a real expansion, right? And Lighthouse Development is continuing their project, which is bringing a Westin hotel to the area, and also the Empire Outlets, which is just a beautiful space, outdoor mall, which is a destination site for Staten Islanders as well as tourists. And there even has been talks of a smaller wheel coming. So that is be great for the area and the continued expansion of the St. George waterfront and along the Bay Street corridor.
That's great. I look forward to the wheel.
Yes, me too. Me too. No, $35 a ride.
Really?
Yeah.
Boy, the mortgage for that.
In addition to just the St. George, and the tourist aspect, last year or 2 years ago, they rezoned the Bay Street corridor in Stapleton, increased the density. One of our clients is building an affordable housing project there. Iron State Development, based out of New Jersey, did a really terrific project called Irby, and that was built on the old naval home port. We're expecting more developers to expand their reach into Staten Island, where you can still build apartment buildings where you can underwrite to a rental.
That's great. So, listen, John and Sean, thank you so much for being here and educating us more about Staten Island. Things are happening there, and if anybody wants to hear more about it, contact these guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shimon.
Thanks, Shimon.